Hi there, welcome to the Noah Presgrave case. We're focusing in today on Kaden Pressy and his 5:15 versus 6:15 timeline based off a key measuring tool which hasn't come up much in question or response by people. That's why I want to do a dedicated video today. Welcome to those that may be watching the live premiere. Share your reactions in the live chat box on the right hand side and be sure to drop your comments and thoughts down below. And if you've got any questions, if you want to catch up on recent coverage, I symbol up there with the full playlist. And if you want to support this channel, PayPal link down below, pinned message. So today we're taking into account when certain police presence was around, when they came on down to the scene, September 4, 2023. There were no Presgrave at the highway, and then compare that with Kaden Pressy and just put it into perspective. Let me show you an example of some of the times. So credit to Jen Fiorillo for basically summarising this. You'll be able to locate this elsewhere when it comes to news articles and whatnot, but I'll zoom in just so it's a bit clearer on screen. Jen said in regard to volunteer firefighters arriving at the scene around 6:14 to 6:15, the time of when, based off some people's outlook, of when Kaden actually arrived at the highway. Under Sheriff Jimmy Williams arriving at around 6:18 a.m, which I'm obviously very aware of by now, and Jeremiah Wilson, the sheriff, arriving just a bit later at 6:24. The key thing is, in regard to these supposed official times of when authority arrived, if Kaden Pressy's timeline was out by an hour, as like people from the dark side suggest, and even like Stevie Howard and some other people along the way, well then Kaden Pressy must have come face to face with these said individuals, correct? So I think it's probably a good idea that we transition onto the map right now, just to set the tone visually too, that let's just say 1 hour onwards, pushing things back by an hour on, the minute hand remains the same. Is there any complications with access to the highway at around 6:15 then? No, not from the looks of it. And based off Renee's timeline being around there, a bit onwards at the highway, being able to get on down to the house based off what she says, close to around 7 or so, or 7 at the highway. Then onwards at about 7:30 or 7:40, that's when the ODOT comes on down, or there's action taken to close the highway. That's still in between that 6:15 to 6:30 time window. It's still possible for someone like Kaden Pressy to access the highway, to get a look of things, and then return back, and then be ordered to go back. But to the party house, Kaden did say, though, he was ordered to go back to the house by a trucker, of all people. Now, if police presence were there, you think the police would be telling Kaden to leave and not some random trucker, of all people. You think the authority would be giving out orders. So that is a slight little counterpoint there. But if we get close, roughly, to the scene where Noah Presgrave was at, or more so found at, and if it's true that it's out by 1 hour 15 minutes, as soon as Kaden Pressy comes on down here at 6:15, based off Jan's comment, volunteer firefighters are present, and then a couple of minutes later, the Undersheriff Jimmy Williams arrives, police presence. Then at 6:24, 6:25, Jeremiah Wilson arrives. Key people, members of the police force, based off when Kaden had left, at the 30-minute mark, so it'd be 6:30, there would be time in that window for Kaden to come on down, for the police to arrive, and for Kaden to see the police, and for the police to see Kaden. So what I'm getting at is, for this whole big debate whether Kaden was there and the whole timestamp started at 5:15 onwards, or if it started at 6:15 onwards, you would measure it as in, if police are present on scene around 6:18 onwards, would they have any cameras, body cameras on them to record and document what's going on? And if so, would any of that footage pick up and detect who was actually there at the time? We can't use Tyler Hardy as a measuring tool. Tyler said he never saw Kaden Pressy. Kaden Pressy said he never saw Tyler Hardy. That's unfortunate. You'd think they would have seen each other if they had been close to the body, right? So were they distant? Who knows? But is there anyone else in between? Any other witnesses that physically saw Kaden Pressy at the highway at 6:15 onwards? And with the police presence with possible cameras, body cameras, you think it would record it all. And maybe then it could be confirmed or debunked in regard to what true time was Kaden at the highway, and then work backwards to the time of when it was announced the death of Noah from Jack's perspective. That hasn't happened yet, and quite a lot of time has passed by since. There may be other events where you could use the same measuring approach in regard to who else was present at a certain scene, event, location before or after Noah's death, and can it be backed up by anyone? Is your level of consistency, even though there's no proper CCTV cameras or highway cameras to show things at times, if there's any body cameras on anyone, or if anyone was recording with phones at any point, then that could go a long way. But with all this time passing by, on the surface level, doesn't seem to be the case. On the surface level, have police confirmed publicly that Kaden's timeline is correct of 5:15? No. Have they debunked it? No. It's the general public and family members of partygoers that have been going at Kaden and questioning him. Surely, there's got to be something like, if Kaden Pressy says what he says is true, that not in terms of the time, but the actions of what he did up close with Noah's body, getting a towel or something to try and cover Noah's body at that specific time, let's just put it, then being ordered to leave by a trucker. If it was at 6:15 onwards, would Kaden even get the chance to get that close to Noah's body then? If not, because police would push you back immediately if you got too close, because you might be intervening, getting in the way. Well then, if that didn't happen, it just couldn't happen, but it's true that Kaden had got close to the body at least and gave a description, then what does that mean then? It's a bit messy. Or some people could start arguing and saying that, well, maybe Kaden didn't actually go up to Noah's body that close. Maybe Kaden didn't get that close at all, because he couldn't if police were there. Based off if it was a 6:15 timestamp onwards. At the end of the day, if it truly is 6:15 onwards, well, there was more people, more witnesses present onwards at that point when the news got about and official calls made at 5:53, for example. So the more people present, the more witnesses, there should be more consistency and acknowledgement whether did you see Kaden, yes or no, and if you didn't, then maybe he wasn't there at that time, and it could ring true that his earlier timeline is more true. Just as an example, because the 5:15 timeline of who was actually there at the scene, fewer people compared to later on, and there's fewer people, fewer eyewitness accounts and whatnot. So, thought I'll just mention that and acknowledge it. The only two other identities of people that remain unknown based off Kaden's timeline would be the unknown truckers that were there at 5:15 and left before 5:43 or so. Will we ever find out the names of those individuals or what? It's just very weird, isn't it? And, if you used to do a comparison between Kaden Pressy and Tyler Hardy, whilst they may have not come face to face or saw each other, why not ask the other Tyler H, the other Tyler, if that was the one that Kaden had a run-in with? But there's not been any dialogue, communication there. So there are still a lot of questions, and likely a range will not be answered after all this time passing by, but it's just other measuring tools that could be used to put into perspective to try and figure out whether someone's timeline is correct or not, completely true, or some mistakes made along the way. At the end of the day, my name's Warlike Ref. Be sure to hit the share button so more people can see this, and we'll see what happens next. Thanks for watching. Goodbye. Good night for now.